In this particular lesson, we're going to take a little bit of a dive into some analysis of different practical sessions across the age groups with a physical lens. So Dan, just to kick this one off, what sort of things are we going to be looking out for?
I'm looking at a few sessions that we have recorded here, and particularly through the physical lens. So these coaches don't know what's coming for their sessions in this lesson. But yeah, we're particularly analysing it from a physical lens. So we'll look at what the current session design is offering the players from a physical standpoint, and how we may tweak that for different physical outcomes. Excellent.
So the first session you'll see is from James Cooke, PDP coaching advisor. He's working with a group of under 11s, so our foundation phase age players. And we're going to ask you now to make some notes as you watch the particular clip that we've provided, and then we're going to come back with some reflections and analysis from our perspective.
Side, the 4 on the side, 2 hasn't been in. Quick changes, guys. Who hasn't been in? Yes, Mimo, in you go. Azzy, in you go. So in this one, as I say, is you can do this with a shape, which you'll see on the session plans, where you can have a back 4 in place. You can have 2 6s, a 10. Are we ready to go, Jackson? From you, Greens, are you done? Everyone setting up positions. Okay, 10 passes a goal. Greens, you get the ball. Can you score? 2, 3, 4. Jack, great ball through the lines. Well done. Great feet, Broads. Azzy, stay in your square. Black ball, black ball. Yes, Azzy, play to him and play. Let's go. So again, there's lots of repetition here, lots of heightened decision making, because you've got, in this scenario here, you've got 6 or 12 players in about a 16 by 16 grid. Okay, so there's going to be lots of turnover, there's going to be lots of mistake. Great split ball, love that, Taj. Black ball from the side.
So hopefully by now you've made some notes on what you've observed in that practice. Obviously a really nice technical session, a positional game that Coote's delivered there. Dan, we're going to go through this clip, and you've obviously had a look at this in preparation for this particular piece, but what were some of the sort of things that stood out to you initially before we watched the clip?
So the thing that jumps out to me is we've got quite a large group of players in a small playing space. So immediately my physical lens is zooming towards being a strength outcome. And then as I watched the activity evolve, as I could see, there was lots of changes of direction, there were accelerations and decelerations, and then there was lots of physical contact. So I'm seeing that it's ticking a lot of boxes for a strength outcome from session design standpoint.
Okay, good summary. So with that said, we're going to take a dive in and actually watch the clip now. So we'll pause it, or we'll pull up any key points and just make some observations as we go.
So just to note here is it's nice to see a rotation of roles within the session, expecting a higher physical load for the defenders in green and the team in possession on the outside in particular. So nice to see that we're sharing that.
Yeah, important for players to rotate for sure.
And then what I want to draw the coach's attention to here is the green defender that I'm pointing at in the bottom left grid. We're just going to watch them for the next 30 to 40 seconds.
4. Jack, great ball through the lines, well done. Great feet, Broads.
So if we pause that there, what jumps out to me is they're heavily involved in that phase of the activity. It's 30 to 40 seconds almost of just them accelerating, decelerating, changing direction, having to put the brakes on and almost stop. They fall over, then they have to get back up again. So they're getting a real heavy physical load that I can see. And then what's interesting for me now, and something we talked about in one of the other modules, is how these small-sided activities can load players in different ways. So I think it'd be really nice if we could rewind and now have a player that we look at in comparison. So as they come up, I'll point them out. So we're watching that same 30 to 40 seconds. We've seen what the defender in the bottom left grid was doing. This time I want us to pay attention to this player in the top right hand corner during the same moment of play.
To get the ball, can you score? One, 2, 3, 4. Jack, great ball through the lines, well done. Great feet, Broads.
So if we pause that there, and we take a direct comparison now between what we saw in the first 30 seconds to the second 30 seconds, looking at those same players, is from a physical standpoint, is their physical loading is totally different. We've got one player accelerating, decelerating, changing direction, tackling, and at that same moment we've got another player in the activity who is almost made of concrete.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here to consider as well. So some of the questions that we would have tasked you with is how we would adapt this practice. So there are some pros in this session. We've got short, sharp movement, that acceleration, deceleration you talked about, that rotation between the players. But I guess one of the things I've observed is that those 8 players around the outside, whilst they're working on those technical outcomes around passing and receiving, potentially being pressed at times, they're perhaps not working at a physical level as you've highlighted. The second thing tactically for me is you've got one player who we've demonstrated pressing ferociously and another player who's perhaps not doing so. So if pressing is your part of your game model or the way you like to play tactically or the players enjoy playing, then perhaps there's a little tactical hole there that again lines up with the physical outcomes that we're discussing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said about the possible way we could adapt this activity from a tactical outcome as well as a physical outcome at the same time. Do you want to share what that was?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just go from here.
Yeah.
So at this point in the video, the drone shot's really helpful because we can see the structure of the session. And one condition that we could bring in if we just pause here is that you can see players on the outside of the area are relatively static. So going back to the point around different training load for different players or different physical outcomes, one condition we could bring in is that after every pass, players have to swap positions. So hypothetically, at this point, the player who's just released the ball, number 10, bottom left of screen, might have to either rotate with the player on the outside or could potentially drive in, which would be a trigger for the player on the ball to pass and replace him. So whilst that may take away from the tactical outcome around the positional game, it may increase the demands on the players physically, so they're getting those short, sharp bursts of speed. I know we've also talked about potentially adapting this through every time you pass, it might be make a 3 or 4 yard run to a cone. So there's lots of little ways we can get a variety of movement there, which means the practice is maintained, but the players on the outside are perhaps a little busier in a physical sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Tony spoke with us, is there's compromise to the changes that we made. So as you said, might force the rotation of players, might compromise the tactical side, but I'm getting this increased physical element. So if we're looking at this from a physical standpoint, that I want to see a more balanced strength outcome for all the players in the session, then I'm likely to change this to get some forced form of acceleration, deceleration, change of direction, which could be achieved through the rotation that you suggested.
Nice. So look, hopefully the analysis that we've shared shed some light. Dan, just to wrap this one up, foundation phase is the age group we're considering. Any kind of reminders or summary points here just to take into account based on the session we've watched and the age of the players?
Yeah, so I think most importantly is it's done through a fun activity. It looks like the players are enjoying themselves, and that's obviously a priority throughout the phases, but particularly at these younger ages. And then we want to ensure that we're allowing enough rest times with these age groups in particular to make sure the movement quality is high. As if we just said, okay, this is going to last for 16 minutes, we're likely to see a decline in the physical quality pretty quickly. Whereas if we can imagine it's more short burst bouts, so we're in there for 2 to 3 minutes and then we pause, we switch over, we're likely to see more quality in terms of the physical outcomes as well.
Nice work. Well, next up, we'll have a look at the youth development phase. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to receive alerts when we post a new video.